Moral Revolution community, welcome back to our podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. Let's talk about it.
Hey, let's talk about it. We are excited for today's conversation because it's some of our best friends at the table. We had to tell ourselves it's time to start recording because we have a lot of information to share with you. So the whole idea of the conversation today is all about when opposites attract with Aaron and Jenna Zint. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're pretty different.
Yes.
How long have you been married?
We're at 14 years in a couple months, and we got 3 kids. And when we met, I was 19 and she was 22.
I had graduated from college
and
he was 19 and I was like,
you're 3 years older than
I
him.
can't do that. And he was a teenager. I had my bachelor's and I was like, oh no, that's bad.
Yeah, and I still got her.
Yeah. So. To be fair, I asked him out, but he still said yes.
But yes, and it was.
This all makes sense to me, actually.
I know that nothing
it all
is
makes
surprising.
sense.
Yeah. My buddy at the time had asked me, or a couple years into marriage, asked me like, "What's the riskiest thing you've ever done?" Because he was discovering that I'm fairly risk averse, and I was like, saying yes to Jenna. Yeah, but she wasn't
It used to be a risky adventure.
It's still that same answer.
Oh my gosh.
That is
Okay,
so
I know
funny.
the question that any single woman is watching wants to know. How did you ask him out?
Oh, well, to be fair, we'd been hanging out for a while. His mom had actually asked me to throw him a birthday party because she didn't know we weren't that good of friends. And I was like, okay, I'll do that for this mom.
Hold on, so she didn't know you were, or you
We're
weren't?
not good friends. She
Yeah,
was busy
yeah.
for a weekend.
You were not good friends at that point.
We're
No,
close
we were
enough to justify
acquaintances,
that.
really.
Yeah. But she was like, for a mom's, like, he had a crappy birthday last year. And I was like,
She knew that Jenna had these skills from
Yeah.
the little interaction we had, and she thought, oh, they're good enough friends. She can do this for him.
So then I threw the birthday party, which was like a month of overlap of hanging out. And then afterwards, he's like, hey, I'd like to take you to breakfast. And he like gets out his journal, reads me all these pages of how I'm awesome. And then he was like, that's why I'm excited to be your friend.
Not my finest moment.
And I literally was like, because I was like, this is building to this epic story.
Yeah,
and then I was like,
No,
so I was like twitching on the inside. I was like, okay, cool. But then I had to hear the narrative because I'm just intense and strong. So like, I came from the South and it was like, if you have to like be too strong, then it's not meant to be. So like you're taking over, you're not
if
supposed
the
to be
guy
strong.
doesn't initiate and do all the things that normally is socially acceptable, then it's not right.
Hold on, we just brushed over, so I gotta know, were you like in your head, were you really just like setting up friendship? Or were you like, I do actually like her, but I don't?
Yeah. I knew that I wanted to tell her all these great things about her because I was working on being more like expressive with my affirmation.
So it was really just a friend set.
It was because then I like paused and I was like, "Are you okay with more than friendship?"
Yeah,
I was,
like, would you
trying
be
to
open
chill
to that?
about it.
With you?
I said that to him. Yeah. And he paused and he was like,
She says it was like 2 minutes of pause. It was
he
probably
was
10
truly
seconds.
contemplation of like, would I?
No, and that's not what happened. So, no, I was literally going like, oh, I had no idea she felt that way. So this is part of the differences between us is that like very risk averse and like stability and like just stable is kind of my inner core. And for her, it's adventurous and fun loving and exploring and new things. And so,
And new things is the bane of your existence.
I hate new things. No, it's kind of like to decide to move to the house that we moved to now. It took Jenna tricking me into seeing houses just for fun. Oh, it's just fun. We have a realtor friend. Let's just go look at houses for fun.
It was actually genius because it was his best friend.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to trick him. Actually, I should be clear.
Yeah.
That's one thing in the like in us being so different. Like it would be easy to feel manipulative,
You're
but
right.
like really feeling like, oh, I actually appreciate and value the strength he does bring. So not trying to make him like me, you know. So, but he did have a best friend who was a realtor, and we did look at houses that were way out of our price range.
That was what
And then
hooked me.
his friend added on one that was in our price range. And then I was like, oh. So I didn't set that up. But then he was like, it was hard for him when we
What
moved.
we realize is the longer I'm in a place and the more familiar it is for me, the more I like it. The newer something is, the higher my anxiety is. And so for Jenna, it's just the opposite. The newer it is, the more she's excited about it, the more comfortable she feels with it. And the longer she's in a place, the more anxiety she gets that she's being trapped or being stuck in a place.
Wasting time or
She says stuck.
It's a really good thing you and I did not get married.
I can't
Because our children
even
would be
imagine.
so dysfunctional.
She's told me about your ideas. I'm like, yes. And then she's like, and then I said no, and I was like, oh yeah,
Wisdom.
wisdom.
Oh man.
But actually, that
Your
was like
new
a
house is so great though.
Oh, it is fantastic.
It wasn't though. I see the potential.
Well, I know you guys had to do
Yeah.
work to it, but I'm just saying, like, I
Thank you.
love your house.
And this is part of the differences as well, is that she can see and envision things that aren't there, and I'm really good at seeing what is, and if it's not great now, it's very difficult to get me across that line.
Believe it'll be great later.
And he helps me anchor, like, hey, like you say we can do just do this, and this.
Right.
That's $30,000. 4 months of work. And I'm like, okay.
Like when we moved into our house and we said, we'll paint the entire house this weekend, and then next week we'll da-da-da-da-da, and a month later of painting. Yeah. So.
But the interesting part in that, actually, that specific example of how different we were, like, it was actually pretty sad for me to be so excited about a new house and something substantial, like, feel like progress in us, like, because we even kept our old house, so it was like some of our finance goals too. So to be alone in my excitement, because he was like pretty anxious. And I think before, like, we'd gotten far enough in the marriage and experienced kind of cycles like this, that like we got to the spot of like, I think one of us wanted the other to be wrong.
Yeah.
And like, oh, you can feel that way and I can feel this way, and neither of us are wrong.
That's so good.
And actually not, and then I
hard to
could express
accept.
my loneliness
Yeah.
of like, oh, I do feel bummed to be more excited and you not match me, but then I'm not going to make you not be anxious or be mad, like talk you out of it. What would
You're
you
not
say?
going to make me wrong or punish me for feeling what I'm feeling. And I'm not, there's, with the anxiety, there's a level of choosing into anxiety when you just choose to kind of perpetuate the mindset. But then there's also just the reality of this is uncomfortable for my personality type. But
And not blaming me for getting us
yes, which there was quite a bit of blame.
It's your fault you guys have this awesome new house, Jenna. I blame you.
I also made the money for this awesome new house, so
Yes.
it's totally terrible of me.
So it did take us quite a while to stop blaming ourselves, blaming each other for what the other person was feeling. So her anxiety when I wouldn't want to do something new, and then my anxiety when we would. And so learning to go, oh, you can actually feel anxiety or pain or sadness, and it doesn't mean that I've actually done anything wrong or sinned. It just is. And that kind of paradigm has taken us a long time to arrive at. Where
Okay, so tell them how they arrived there.
Yes.
Like,
We actually have a little phrases like, you can connect with their sad and it doesn't mean you're bad. And it's taken literally years of us reminding ourselves that, like in the middle of conflict. So like for me, actually in this instance, if he feels anxiousness and sad, like over it, I go to, maybe this wasn't wisdom. Maybe this was me being impulsive. Was I wrong? Did I miss it? Am I the blame? I would blame myself. Like he might blame outward, but I blame inward for his sadness. So then I would probably like maybe have tried to like get out of it or like backpedal or.
this is a common phrase in our marriage. When she would propose an idea, I'd feel anxious, but eventually I'd come around because I'm like, she's probably right. She's been right a lot about this new stuff. So
this whole new thing,
trying
the idea
anything.
of doing new things.
Some risks.
So I've seen enough. I've had enough evidence that this is actually a strength and not just something that's there to stress me out.
Yeah, it's not chaos.
And so, but there's enough times where I go, no, okay, let's do it. And she goes, but we don't have to. Like she has
I
this
get triggered to be
this
like,
running
oh.
narrative. Like I'm gonna railroad him and I'm gonna overwhelm
Okay,
him.
let's just get vulnerable because you guys are already there. Give me a time where the new idea did not work out.
Gosh. So
And how did you guys work through
working
that?
at the airport.
Because that's a big one for people.
Yeah.
When you're trusting each other and it doesn't work out, and then some people will make the other one pay the price for
I do so.
that their idea or their thing did not work out.
Yeah.
He is so gracious. That is one thing about Aaron. Sometimes I'd be like, be meaner to me. It's like, you're mean enough to yourself. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Would you say the airport though?
Yeah,
Working
the
at
airport was a good one because
Okay, you have to explain what the airport is.
So I worked at the airport with Cole for a little bit, and you get to work in exchange for flight benefits. So it's just hourly rate, but you get to fly anywhere for free on standby. So standby is the big caveat. It does not sound as glamorous as you think, but I likened me working at a place that got limitless travel to an alcoholic working at a bar. It was like really hard to manage my self-control. So like we should. So it was just interjected a ton of chaos. Even doing it really cheaply was more money than we could afford. It got us into debt. I made him the bad guy of having to say no to me rather than me managing myself and saying no to trips. And then you felt pretty lonely too, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of loneliness. I mean, for literal time of her being gone when she wouldn't have normally. There's a lot of loneliness in the. This is fun. There's a lot of fun stuff, but I'm freaking exhausted. And knowing that if she has another new idea, because this is always an option, I just have to constantly disappoint my wife. And so that was like feeling alone, and I have to be the anchor, because otherwise we're untethered and we're in orbit.
So
that
then
was tough.
I quit after 8 months or so, and then just kind of self-imposed like, I need to tell myself no more. I need to not bring it to Aaron and like hash this out. I need to have my own like, hey, it's actually not worth the cost. He's been great, and I get to like, some of the anxiousness that arises knowing that like us being so differently and him maybe opting out more, I'd be like, okay, just because it's not now doesn't mean not ever. Versus the idea of he said it's a once in a lifetime, or this deal won't come around, and be like, I'm actually.
It's almost never really once in a lifetime.
Yeah. It's fear motivated too. Like the idea, like FOMO, like literally, you can laugh it off, but I was like, I'm actually motivated by missing moments by fear.
So part of your question, like how do we get ourselves to a place where I'm not going to be constantly blaming somebody else for that? It was a lot of individual work around realizing the things when I feel fear or I feel shame. For her, it's a lot of shame will come up. For me, a lot of fear. And sadness, whatever it is, a lot of those times when we start pointing it out, it's self-protection. Like there's all self-protection mechanisms. And when we realize like, ooh, I'm self-protecting by using all these ways, like my fear and her shame. And when I take ownership for that, like it has to be a Jesus inner work that you do. Otherwise you can't do it, because marriage is like the laying down your life for your spouse kind of part. You can't really do that well without Jesus. So anyways, it's a lot of inner work of going, this is self-protection. Am I really in danger right now? Like everything about me feels like moving into this new house is danger. Like, what if we can't pay for the mortgage? What if this? What if this? What? All these different things.
Because you guys kept the old house too.
Yeah, and so that was part of it.
So as a risk, it wasn't just sell the old house, use the equity, new house. You needed a renter.
It was an investment and a move.
Yeah,
simultaneously,
and risk. So there was, as you can see, a lot of anxiety for someone like me.
I can hear it in your voice when you say the word risk. I feel like when you say risk, there's a twitch somewhere on your body, whether we can see it or not.
It is the curse word, yeah.
I think, too, for me, at one point, so Aaron's really stable with our finances, and he's like a saver, and mine being risk, like, prone to like, hey, looking at things as opportunities.
Yeah.
I am not as much a saver. I would be like, hey, let's try to invest in this, but that could also be unwise.
Totally.
So there'd be times that I feel like he was like Debbie Downer with our fund, like, no, I think this is a good opportunity, whatever. And I felt like one time the Lord was like, hey, you are grateful for his stability in a lot of areas, but then when it hinders you, you begrudge it, and realizing like that's just the opposite side of the coin. He's like, you can't benefit from this strength and begrudge it when it stops you. And I was like, oh, he's like, you take it all together. So this idea of like, I stopped seeing it as like inconvenience and started like, oh, that's actually if I just change my perspective, it's a strength that I really appreciate and get a lot of benefit from, So.
And then the same for me as well, just realizing how much life that I got that I wouldn't normally have stepped out into and experienced, that I began to, like, when she brings up an idea, I still feel the initial hint of anxiety just go like, that sounds crazy. But I have learned to, not take on the responsibility for new ideas immediately, but just kind of like try to lean into her energy and get excited with her so that she's not alone in her joy.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to say it, like alone in joy, like where you're the only one that's feeling the excitement. Like, can you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, it feels like almost like the hope of what could be for our family,
Yeah.
So it's like it's a beautiful thing, and like the idea of hope gets us places further, like it keeps us moving. So wanting to be with, like, feel a witness on those steps.
Because it is important to feel like you're going through something good or bad together.
Yeah.
Like, because of, like, I don't have the best, like, emotional, I don't know what the right language is. I just don't cry much. I don't, like, feel stuff and sometimes Kate's like, I feel alone because you're not actually like, I feel like you should be hurting. I'm hurting. Why are you not hurting? I feel so alone in my feelings. And learning how to balance that is really tough.
Yeah. I think for us, one of the biggest things is one, recognizing when I am playing the victim in my marriage. And so especially when we're so different, I will suddenly step into this role of a victim towards her new ideas, towards her risk ventures, towards anything around that. But when I recognize like, oh, I am letting her being herself cause me to just like shut myself down and be sad and feel like I'm doing this to myself. This is really a narrative that I'm telling myself that she's the bad guy. And so when part of what we would suggest to couples and when we do premarital coaching and things like that, we're telling people like, hey, there's going to be the story that you're telling yourself about the other person. And it's a narrative that is running through your whole marriage. So recognize the narrative. But then since you're already making stuff up, because we're already here just like writing the story
He
about.
said, and what he meant was, and when he did this.
Just the whole thing out. We got a bunch of novelists like that are writing Game of Thrones novels
about their marriage.
About their spouse, and she's the dragon.
About
I've never
how
seen
I
it,
put
but
away
I
the
assume.
coffee cup or something like that.
100%.
So it's recognizing you have a story and you're the one making it up. Since you're already making stuff up, what if you wrote something different about
He
them?
actually does this.
This
So
is
if
really
he
good.
gets triggered, he'll take time and actually write it out to himself.
So yeah, I'll write this out. Here's the facts of what Jenna did, and here's the story that I told myself about what that meant about me, what that means about
Aaron.
her. And so as I've discovered, oh, this is the story, then I just start making other stuff up because I'm already like doing it. So, and this is the part I can invite the Lord in or invite other people's voices to help me rewrite that, especially when I'm like, I can literally see no other way that for her to have said this. Like she
With
meant,
pure intention.
She had to mean it this way.
yeah, there's so
Trying
many.
to cut me.
All the mind reading that I'm just doing in that moment, I need other people's voices to inject like, oh, what if she actually cares about you and wants the best for you? I'm like, no, my wife, So it's recognizing that, but then and rewriting a narrative, and part of that narrative that we've had to rewrite for in ourselves about the other person is. These are strengths, even though at times I feel the strength of those gears kind of go in the opposite direction of my gears. And
I actually was going to say,
Go ahead.
I wrote a list of the ways that I felt maybe hindered by his personality type. And then I actually elaborated, but what's another adjective? Like, so for instance, maybe risk adverse was steady. Like, so what's the positive?
there you
So
go.
like, it's the same like trait, but what's the positive?
sides
way
of
it's
the
on it?
coin.
Yeah.
It's great.
So I just did that for a few things. So when I encounter the like if I start to be like, oh, he's so risk adverse, I'm like, actually that's his steadiness. And I'm actually really grateful
That's
for his
great.
steadiness. So I kind of like rewrite like, oh, what's the full picture of the strength of it, or his trait.
yeah, because whatever story you're telling yourself, you're going to look for evidence to support that story.
It's true.
And so anytime that the story says risk averse means like he's an anchor weighing down this fund that I want to have, she's going to find evidence for that. But when she flips it on the other side, steadiness, she's going to go
great,
like, oh,
Aaron.
where does this actually benefit me? And I've done a ton of that with like, I feel anxiety. That's the story I'm telling myself, and I'm looking for all these ways that she's just caused me so much anxiety. And then when I flipped it to like, she has brought so much life to me and so much adventure. I'm now looking, the other day she bought me these super spicy peanuts that I don't necessarily like, but I know she was trying real hard. And so I've flipped the narrative around like, wow, she's working so hard to try to get me stuff that I really like.
Yeah.
And I realized that just the other day about something specific like that was helpful because I had started to change the story that I was telling myself.
That is really good.
It's so good.
You guys just covered the last question I was going to ask.
That's perfect. Honestly, Aaron and Jenna are so brilliant. They have a podcast called The Marriage Lab. You can find them there. But will you tell them both how to find you? You guys have marriage coaching and resources
Yeah.
for people who want to connect with
We
you.
have a website, zintsquad.com, where we kind of host a lot of different things. We do one-on-one coaching, we do couples coaching, and then Jenna has a habit mastery course
I'm a habit coach.
She's a habit coach, but she teaches this course that teaches people how to get unstuck, how
Actually,
to...
Caitlin's in the class
That
now.
helped me so much.
It's incredible. Like so many testimonies, so
Life-changing.
much fruit. Yeah.
And you wrote a book.
Oh, I also wrote a book. Yes, that's on
Which you
Amazon.
sell?
Which you guys sell. It's
Yes.
called Numb to Known: The Surprising Path Away from Porn, and has my whole story in there and lots of stuff that I talked about.
You guys, we will be sure to link all of this goodness in our show notes, and you guys can find them there. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more and check out all of our awesome content, be sure to head to our website at moralrevolution.com and our socials, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. But before you leave, don't forget to like, review, subscribe, all of the things. We want you guys to come back and join us. We enjoyed having you. See you next time.